And today's unsolved mystery is of that of did Napoleon Bonaparte die from arsenic poisoning? Napoleon spent nearly 6 years living in St. Helena, but after a period of illness, he died on May 5th, 1821, at the age of 52. The verdict from the autopsy carried out was that he died from stomach cancer, like his father before him. A comprehensive study published in the journal Nature, Clinical Practice of Gastroenterology in 2007 confirmed that the reported evidence was consistent with the diagnosis of gastric cancer. Most medical researchers are in agreement about the nature of Napoleon's demise, but there was something unusual about his corpse that points to a more sinister end. Was this cancer's death covering up a plot to assassinate the little corporal? In Napoleon's last will and testament, recorded just 3 weeks before his demise, he wrote, "I died before my time, murdered by the English oligarchy and its hired assassin." This foretelling has formed a basis for the belief that cancer was not what finished Napoleon off, but that one or more of his island companions plotted to assassinate him. There were many who wanted Napoleon dead, his French rivals who feared he would return and yet again to take the throne, and his enemies, the allied nations of Great Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia. After the French King Charles X was overthrown by the people in 1830, the reign of Louis Philippe I began. The new monarch had no quarrel with Napoleon, and so he started negotiations with the British to have Napoleon's body returned to France. By 1840, his body was exhumed from his resting place on St. Helena and transported to Paris. When the soldiers sent to retrieve him opened the casket, they were shocked to discover a corpse that was almost perfectly preserved, despite the fact that it hadn't been placed embalmed, a sign of severe alcohol or arsenic poisoning. Because arsenic is toxic to microorganisms that would ordinarily break down human tissue, if there are large amounts of arsenic present, decomposition insignificantly slowed, a phenomenon known as arsenic mummification. So over the years, a number of experiments have been conducted on samples of Napoleon's hair to test for the presence of arsenic. During his lifetime, he gave locks of hair as souvenirs to admirers, and when he died, in accordance with his wishes, his hair was cut off and distributed to various members of his establishment as keepsakes, providing further evidence for testing. The level of arsenic found in the samples, which are dated between 1805 and 1821, varies from 15 parts per million to 100 parts per million. A normal level is 1 per part per million, and 3 parts per million is considered the maximum safe limit. These findings support the theory that throughout the last months of his life, Napoleon was exposed to high levels of arsenic. So how did he come to have such arsenic levels in his body? In the 19th century, arsenic was actually a very common ingredient in medical remedies, fabrics, artificial plants, soaps, and paper products. Wallpaper and wallpaper paste contained arsenic as a deterrent for rats, a common problem practically as at Longwood House where Napoleon resided at St. Helena. A piece of green wallpaper from Napoleon's quarters was tested in the 1990s. It had been torn from the walls not long after Napoleon's death by a visitor to the site in 1823 and kept in a scrapbook. The example was found to contain high levels of arsenic. It's possible that the island's typically wet and damp weather created the right conditions for mold to grow and release high levels of arsenic-based gas called trimethylene into the atmosphere. This deadly decorative feature was a common sight throughout the 1800s. In the UK alone, 1 million rolls of wallpaper were sold each year by 1830. When tests were carried out toward the end of the century, 4 out of 5 wallpapers were found to contain arsenic. While it's possible the high levels of arsenic found in Napoleon's hair samples contributed to his death, studies of other samples from his earlier life by a physicist at the University of Milano Bicocca and the University of Pavia, Italy, point to the fact that Napoleon had lived with these relatively high levels of arsenic since boyhood. There is no denying Napoleon was sick before he died. The autopsy carried after his death by his physician, Dr. Francois Carlo, into monarchy and collaborated by 5 other doctors, named stomach cancer as the cause. However, research in recent years by a team in San Francisco Medical Examiner's Department have shown a spotlight on the treatments he received. Their theory suggests the medicine that sought to make him better may actually have killed him off. To alleviate the intermittent nausea Napoleon suffered from the last 8 months of his life, he was prescribed regular doses of potassium tartrate, a poisonous colored salt that induces vomiting. This would have caused a serious potassium deficiency, which could have led to a potentially fatal heart condition. Thus, coupled with the 600 milligram, 5 times the normal dose of mercuric chloride, or chamomile, as it is otherwise known, administered to him 2 days before he died to help clear his intestines, would have further reduced his body's potassium levels. So most doctors today agree that medical intervention may have hindered rather than helped Napoleon's condition, and that even if arsenic had been administered as a poison, he would have succumbed to his stomach cancer either way. He was a powerful man with many enemies, and no matter how he died, his death would have fueled conspiracy theories for centuries to come.